Thank you for listening to UK Cinema History, Episode 42, Why I Love Taika Watitti by independent filmmaker Erin Brown. Well, it looks like the gang's all here. Thank you for being here, Erin Brown, an independent filmmaker, Yassi, Soufi, co-host and co-founder of UK Cinema History, and best-selling author and ghostwriter Hi Bender.
I just want to say, Erin, it's a pleasure to meet you, and Eric, Yassi, always great to see you.
We always love having you. Hi. Welcome to a special edition of UK Cinema History. This is a start of a new series we're going to do about people who are in or around either the industry or writing about the industry, and the people who got them into filmmaking. And our first guest is going to be Erin Brown. We're going to have her give a presentation about the filmmaker that inspired her, Mr. A Taika Watitti, or as his family knows him, Taika David Cohen.
Who is Taika Waititi?
So Taika Waititi is a director from New Zealand. He's Maori on his father's side and Jewish on his mother's side. That's why he's Taika David Cohen. That's actually still his legal name, but he goes by Watitti professionally. He originally tried to keep like the Cohen part as when he was a writer and Watitti when he was a director, but then he just was like, it's easier to stick with one name. Let's see. He started out doing comedy when he was in college. He was in a group called the Humor Beasts with Jermaine Clement, and that was before Jermaine Clement formed Fly the Conchords with Brett McKenzie. But he was involved in that as well. He ended up writing one episode of Flight of the Conchords and writing and directing a second episode. And I think they all kind of met. Well, the Humor Beasts were already in Edinburgh. I'm not sure what Brett McKenzie was doing there, but I know that he and Jermaine were in another group, I believe. Anyway, there was a lot of comedy groups around the same time in the same place. And Rhys Darby was kind of peripheral to those groups. And ultimately, at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, they all met up and ultimately formed Flight of the Conchords with Brett and Jermaine as the main duo, and Rhys as their manager, and Taika just directing. Let's see. Kind of went from there. He did a lot of short films. His first short film was actually for the 48-hour Film Festival, which is sort of a filmmaking challenge that they have in various cities where you have 48 hours to create a film from scratch. And to make sure that it's not something you've already done before, you have to use like one line of dialogue and like one character name, just sort of as, I don't know if you can hear my dog and my cat in the background being obnoxious, but they've decided that it is obnoxious time. Sorry about that if you can hear them. Anyway, so he did Two Cars, One Night for the 48-hour Film Festival, and it was nominated for an Oscar for Best Short Film. So the level of talent it makes to create something like that is pretty amazing. I've done a 48-hour film festival. I just was a writer on one, and it wasn't amazing, but it was fun. It's a fun process. And so he kind of made a name for himself there. And he's gone on to make, he went on to make Eagle versus Shark, which is a romantic comedy starring, what is her name? Lauren something. Darn it, I'm sorry. Jermaine Clement stars in that with Lauren Horsley. And it's about, she's a fast food worker that's got a crush on a nerd that works in a video game store, and it's how they end up getting together. And he's like, Jermaine's character is this big loser, and he wants to beat up his childhood bully, and it's very odd. It's not my favorite of his. The next film he did was Boy, and it's semi-autobiographical about how about a kid named that's his name is Alamein, but he goes by Boy, and his father, also Alamein, is a gang member who's in and out of prison and shows up to look for some money that they buried in a field right before he got arrested and went to jail. And it starts with Boy having this hero worship of his father because he's built up this character in his head of what a great guy he is, and it turns out the guy is a loser. He's nothing like what Boy has imagined, but he's still trying to see that because that's his dad and that's his hero. And he ultimately realizes that the guy is he's not a good person. And it's a very complex character, Alamein, because um, the movie starts with one of Boy's teachers telling him that he had potential, and um, he didn't know what potential meant. And the teacher said that his father had potential too. And then as you see as the film goes along, Alamein's not stupid. He's got a lot of good qualities, but he's very short-sighted, very self-absorbed, um, and he's never around for his family. Um, and it's just really interesting to see that how deep that character is, because Taika's father was like that from everything that I've heard him say in interviews. He doesn't really go into a lot of detail. He won't even say what his father's name is, so I don't think he wants you to look that up. Um, but yeah, his father was constantly cheating on his mother and was in and out of prison and things like that. But he was also very creative, and a lot of Taika's artistic abilities come from his father. So it's a very complex situation. Um, After that, he did What We Do in the Shadows, which I think we all know that movie. And if we don't, it's vampires. It's a it's a pseudo documentary about vampires sharing a flat in Wellington, New Zealand. He based that off of a short film that he did with the same actors. Um, he just basically expanded the concept out. Um, it's funny because the original concept was he would play a vampire stand-up comedian, and Jermaine would play a vampire heckler, and he would be planted in the audience. And so Taika's character would be telling these really bad jokes, and Jermaine's character would stand up and heckle him. And he's like, "You've been following me around for 300 years, heckling me. Why are you doing this?" Which, I mean, that's an amazing concept. So it turned into the film, What We Do in the Shadows, which was all of them living together in a flat. And if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. It is one of the funniest films I've seen because Taika's got that sense of humor that really works for me. It's like ridiculous, but also dry. Um, it's it's almost like very British, like Monty Python-ish kind of a thing. It's really good. Um, so after that was Hunt for the Wilder People. Um, so yeah, I'm kind of going film by film by film here. Hunt for the Wilder People is probably my favorite of these. Um, and that one is a Mari kid in foster care ends up living with a new foster family, the Faulkners, Bella and Heck. Bella really wanted a kid, and so why they brought they that's why they took in Ricky Baker. And I mean, she's like one of the sweetest characters in like any movie I've seen. She's just very loving, pretty down to earth in a lot of ways, but also just very loving and wants to have this family. And Ricky gets to feel really accepted and loved for the first time in his life. And then she dies, and Ricky doesn't want to go to juvie. That's his big thing. I don't want to go to juvie, and because this is his last chance to get a foster home. So he tries to fake his death and does it very badly and ends up burning down their barn. Um, and he goes to hide in the wilderness, and then Heck comes after him, even though want he didn't want a foster kid to begin with. But he ends up following this kid, and they stay hidden in the wilderness for weeks, and becomes sort of a phenomenon in the news. And it's all about their adventures in the woods and then having to get back into society. Um, it's really funny, and it also does something that is probably my favorite thing about Taika's work. He can be incredibly funny and then hit you with an emotional gut punch. that you weren't expecting. There's a ton of depth to it. So the humor is on the surface, but then you've got all of this depth underneath, all of the emotions, and he creates these characters and they're very believable. And he's amazing at casting kids. Um, Julian Dennison, who plays Ricky Baker in Hunt for the Wilder People. All right. After Hunt for the Wilder People, he did Thor Ragnarok, which is probably the best Thor movie if you like the MCU. The Thor movies up to that point were kind of, in my opinion, boring. Um, like the first Thor movie was okay. The second one was like, eh. And then they made it into a comedy. And Taika is amazing at improvisation, and turns out so is Chris Hemsworth and uh, Tom Hiddleston. So they just improvised a lot of it. So a lot of the charm of What We Do in the Shadows was because, yes, there was a script, but no, they didn't let the actors ever see it. So they had to improvise the scenes as they went along. Thor Ragnarok has a very similar feel to it. Because you can tell they're just making stuff up, and it works. It's really funny. It also has Rachel House, who I love. She's an actor that is in a lot of his films. She's very talented. What else has she been in that people have seen? She wasn't in What We Do in the Shadows. She was in Hunt for the Wilder People as the police officer that was following Ricky Baker. She was in Our Flag Means Death as Mary Reed. So she's really good. I don't know if anybody has seen Wrecked, which is a Lost parody that was on TBS for a while and had Rhys Darby in it. They ended up filming close to New Zealand, so they got a lot of New Zealand actors in that. She was in the third season of that. So that was a tangent. Um, moving on from Thor Ragnarok, because that's like probably his most well-known film. So I don't think I really need to go into detail about that. Jojo Rabbit is another of my very favorites. Um, and that's the story of a German kid um, during the Second World War that he's very isolated from the other kids. He doesn't fit in with them, and so he has his imaginary friend is Hitler, which makes sense in context. It's a whole big why would that be your imaginary friend? It's because he wants something to belong to, and the Hitler Youth is something that he can belong to, but he doesn't fit in with them either. He's not that kind of a kid. He's a very kind-hearted kid. He just wants friends. He doesn't realize how bad things are, and his mother, which is my favorite Scarlett Johansson performance ever. She's amazing as his mother. She's hiding a Jewish kid in their house, and she's working with the resistance, trying to win people over so they can get rid of the Nazis, because the Nazis are bad. I mean, that's an understatement. They're and because Taika, his mother is Jewish and he's from a Jewish family, he played Hitler because what would offend Hitler more than being portrayed by a Polynesian Jew, in his own words. And the funny thing is, there are so many people that don't understand that that's what he was doing, and people who haven't seen the movie are like, oh, it's anti-Semitic. It's like, no, it's extremely not. It's very Nazis are bad people. Like, you have to see it, and if you're gonna dismiss it out of hand because he plays Hitler, it's like you're not watching the same movie, are you? Because the moral of the story is like, don't just go along with the crowd because that's what's easy. Sometimes you have to do the hard things in life, and I'm gonna have to give away spoilers here, so I hope it doesn't ruin the film for anybody. There's a scene that, again, the humor going to an emotional gut punch. Um, Jojo finds that his mother has been caught and executed by the Gestapo, and he finds her body, and it's just, you're watching the scene and he's following a butterfly and everything's cute, and then you see his mother's shoes because she's hanging, and it just stops you in your tracks. Like, you can't believe that the movie took that turn that fast. Just boom. Um, Over the course of the film, he desaturates the color, so you can see it getting bleaker and bleaker and bleaker as things get worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's one where you can really see the lack of color. Um, he's got other characters in that like Captain K is a Nazi officer, but he's very obviously gay and in a relationship with one of his junior officers. Um, and he doesn't like what's happening either. And so everybody is doing what they can. And that's one of the messages that Jojo's mother gave him. The first time they see the bodies hanging that have been executed, Jojo says, "What did they do?" And she says, "What they could." So, what do? You do what you can to do what good is possible in the world. It's an amazing movie, and the Oscar was well deserved for that. Yeah, it can be a hard watch knowing what's going to happen, but oh my god, it's a beautiful film. I kind of want to skip over Thor: Love and Thunder because it's so divisive. Um, a lot of people hated it just because um, Taika has this personality, and it's definitely a put-on personality where he's, typical Hollywood douchebag and all full of himself, and I'm a star. And he's not actually. If you listen to him in interviews, that's not what he's like. In fact, from what I understand, is he changes based on who he's talking to be somebody that you're going to like, and that's it's a trauma response. And I shouldn't psychoanalyze somebody I've never met, but given his childhood, it makes sense that he's going to try to fit in wherever he can with whoever he can and be the person you expect him to be. But then he does this over the top personality because he personally thinks it's funny. So people don't necessarily get that, and so they're prone to hate him for being this over the top guy. But that's not who he is. Um, that's I was actually so I follow the Cryptid Factory. They've got a Patreon, and about once a month they do something called Cryptid Cocktails. It's a big Zoom meeting of one of the hosts, Buttons, and typically his daughter, and they're making cocktails, and the rest of us just join in, and we can either try to replicate the cocktail or we can drink our own stuff or whatever. And we have a little show and tell and stuff like that. I mentioned I was doing this, and Buttons, the co-host, he's going to he's going to empty Taika's hot tub today because Taika's out of town because Kiwis all know each other apparently. And he says that Taika's like got a great sense of fun and playfulness, and that's why he's so good with kids. Um, and I would rather listen to somebody that knows him personally than go by the personality he puts out there. Um, so, and then the next film, Next Goal Wins. I wasn't a big fan of it. I watched it because I, I'm going to watch anything that he does. Um, and it's a great story. It's about the American Samoan soccer team losing like 30-0 to the Australian soccer team, and then trying to come back from that by bringing in an American football coach or soccer coach. Um, it could have been a lot funnier than it was, I thought. But I also know that it got delayed because one of the characters was played by Armie Hammer, and after everything came out about him, they entirely cut him from the film and reshot all of his scenes with Will Arnett. So, so it had to kind of
What's a
be
little
redone, and that's
imaginary cannibalism between friends? I mean, seriously.
right. So yeah, um, it wasn't bad. It was it was a sports film by somebody that doesn't seem to really be a soccer fan. So that's not one that I'm going to really recommend, but it's good to watch just so you'll have watched it. I'm not sure what he's working on now because he's constantly got projects going. Um, Clara and the Sun is listed as one who he's going to do soon. Um, he's also been working on Time Bandits. I have no idea when that's ever going to come out unless it has and I've missed it. And that's him with Jermaine Clement, based on the Terry Gilliam film Time Bandits. Um, I will probably watch it. I didn't like the movie, um, but I only saw it the one time, so maybe I would like it better if I watched it as an adult. But so yeah, that's basic rundown of Taika's filmmaking career so far. So, any questions?
Well, before we open it up for a Q&A,
Yeah.
I want you to take a few minutes and just talk about what it is that you personally respond to in Watitti's work, and then we'll get people's reflections.
Um, okay, so what I like about his work, he's got that great sense of humor, and he's got um, such great depth in his characters. Um, he knows how to put together a great story. He knows how to get great performances out of people. His music choices are incredible. Like I had never listened to Leonard Cohen before, and now I'm hooked. Uh, he used "The Partisan" in a really great montage scene in "Hunt for the Wilder People." That's an amazing song. Um, okay, so the montage scene, he did this twice, and it's it was so clever. It was an in-camera montage, if you can imagine that. He basically he put the camera, the tripod down and had the camera on a swivel, and so it turned in a full circle, and he would have the actor would do one thing, and then he would have a stand-in for the next scene of the same actor doing something else, and then bring the actor back for the next shot. So it's an in-camera montage. I didn't even ever consider such a thing, but it's very clever and it works really really well. Um, he knows how to set up the shots. Um, I mean his film work is beautiful. Um, Before he did film, he was a visual artist. He was a painter and an illustrator. So he knows how to make art look good in front of you. I don't have that skill. I'm much more word oriented. Um, so when somebody is that good at making a shot look good, I'm just impressed. And the way he does it, I mean, it's just beautiful to look at. Just like with Jojo Rabbit, when I was talking about the shoes, he every now and then he would show her feet, so you knew what her shoes looked like. And Jojo didn't know how to tie his shoes, so she would tie them for him. And he would try to tie her shoes, and he failed miserably. But you could see them. And then when he discovers his mother, you never see her face. You only see her feet. You see those shoes, and it's enough. And it just breaks your heart. I believe that right after that, after he finds him, the kid is sitting there, and he goes to the different roofs, and the way the roofs are built, they look like eyes, like like the city is watching what's happened and is watching his grief, and just to be able to put together something like that, like I wouldn't think to do that personally. um, so I'm always amazed by somebody who's that visual. Um, he also plays guitar, and I don't know if he's ever been in a band, but he's definitely interested in music, and that's how he's so good at picking the music for his films. I mean, obviously he's not the only person doing this, but he does have final say as the director, um, and so the music really works. So again, for Jojo Rabbit, it opens with a German version of "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and it's pretty amazing. So, um, yeah, I think that's all I got as far as that goes right now.
Excellent. Now, I wanted to start the discussion off with an interesting. First of all, Yazzie, can you hear me better now? I'll take that as a yes. Hey, well, welcome to the stage, Reverend Resin. I wanted to start out with when he was nominated for an Oscar for Two Cars One Night. He tried to pull a practical joke and convince all the other people who were nominated for Best Short to pretend to be asleep in the audience, and
Yeah,
they had all said, "Yeah, I'll do that." And he actually turned out to be the only one doing it, on camera, but
yeah,
and this was as a very young film. He was in his 30s, filmmaker doing his first try, and to me that tells you, who he is as a person. I just absolutely
yeah,
love that story.
yeah. It's hilarious. Yeah, that's part of his humor. He'll do whatever he thinks will get a laugh, but he knows how to get the laugh. He's very smart. He gets people, um, which wow. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's also a trauma response a little bit because when I was a kid, I learned to be funny because if people are laughing with you, they're not laughing at you. They're not going to hurt you. They're enjoying what you're doing, and you learn to read a room very quickly. You learn to take the temperature of the room and see if anything bad's going to happen. And especially with somebody um, physically abusive, yeah, you learn what's going to set them off and what's not. And so you can translate that down the road, what's going to get people on your side, what's going to make you laugh. And so he did that, knowing that it was hilarious, but then nobody else wanted to follow through with it, which is disappointing. I wish they all had, but that's him, you know. I think that's part of why his improv works so well. Is he's very smart, and he's able to, you know, make those connections really really fast, um, in the funniest possible way. There are outtakes from or BTS actually, because there's nothing that's been released officially by HBO or anything. One of the other actors on Our Flag Means Death, Samba Shoots, would do, you know, would film like everything just for fun. Um, there are a lot of improvised scenes between Taika and Reese because they've known each other for 20 something years, and they both have that ability to find the funniest thing to say in the moment, and they riff off of each other. And if you watch the series, there are parts where they do that. Like the entire, you know, Blackbeard's bar and grill scene was improvised between the two of them. So,
Well, I'm going to go in a PTR order and just kind of start an open discussion of about Watitti. And so next in PTR would be our co-founder Yassi Soufi. And yeah, Yazzie. First, any questions for Erin, and second, your thoughts on Watitti.
Uh, my question for Erin, I think I'm gonna leave the questions after everyone speaks. Maybe I find my answer, or it's other people. But in my general thoughts on Taika Waititi is that he, I think he's right now he's so misunderstood because of his absurd and very postmodern style of comedy.
yeah.
I think this the amount of absurd and this, and you know the very deep use of, you know, symbolism and the multiple layers of semiotics and all, you know, it's not the motifs, it's not just it seems goofy, it seems shallow, just like, you know, the classic absurd comedy, but he kind of blended with the, you know, the issues of today, with the you know, he's such a good advocate for, we talked about it last week, for LGBTQ, for racism, and for women's right and all that, but he never rubs it in our face. He used this very great tool of comedy and absurd comedy, which has always been the tool to, you know, face the issues of society, or like, you know, commentary and criticize them in the best way. So, you know, his humor, I don't want to say it's messagey, but there's always this layer and nuance and message into it. And you're keep like Aaron is keep talking about the mental state, the psychology, and I think that's in his improvisation, because improvisation in comedy is the tool, is another tool for, like, today they say, like, it's the best way to cure autism, it's the best way to you know, the glossophobia, to face all your fears through this creativity, because you have to listen. You have to listen to the person in front of you. You have to build upon others' words. And this communication is like the best. You keep saying that, Aaron just keeps saying that it all goes back to his trauma. And I think the trauma, not even in improvisation, but the best way that he portrayed a kid's trauma and the childhood trauma was in Jojo Rabbit. And, you know, all the sorry, Aaron, interrupt me any moment. Please go ahead.
I have to think of what I was going to say because I agree with you. Um, I just have to go back to what I was.
Oh, sorry. So let me say. So
Um,
maybe
that's
get back to. So it's this blending. You know this. Why I
yeah,
said it's not just absurdity, but it's a postmodern absurdity
yeah,
because he blends all these genre. You know this
yeah,
eclectic mix of I could say like the movies that it gets more negative criticism. It's kind of like the hallmark of postmodernism in comedy, especially
yeah.
the Thor and what was the second one?
Love and Thunder.
The
Yeah.
Thunder. Yeah. So you see it's a comedy only for the sake of comedy.
Hmm. Yeah, he puts. There's so many layers to what he does. It's amazing. Um, sorry, my brain froze up. Um, he,
The exaggerated characters, this
yeah.
real humor. I think it hard
I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out.
Matrix.
comedy. We
um,
either deep dark comedy or they're goofy comedy. We cannot.
yeah,
I think the audience today cannot accept this kind of satirical mockumentary or
yeah,
these absurd characters. The genre parody.
yeah. I don't think it's necessarily today's audience. I think it's just how people have always been. Um, because I mean, satire takes a lot more thinking than the really broad comedy, and people don't always know what to do with that. Um, which is why people were hating on Jojo Rabbit before
To
seeing it.
me, yeah, I think that's very that gives nuance and layers.
Hmm. Yeah,
Well, and I think his visual style is
yeah,
a part of that satire as well. You mentioned not particularly liking Time Bandits, but I actually think that the closest I can think of to Watiti's style earlier would be the Terry Gilliam visual style. Although he doesn't use the extremely wide lenses the way that Gilliam uses, but he does the same sort of thing of that every shot looks almost like a political cartoon, and how he
yeah,
packs everything into uh, each shot the same way Gilliam does. Which and of course both of them started out as visual artists.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
she's on the phone. Erin's on the
What?
phone, everybody.
What? I'm not on the phone.
Oh,
I
oh,
had a call try to come in and I canceled it because bill collectors
oh,
constantly calling. So I did not take the call. I'm not on the phone.
oh, okay.
um,
Good. I
but
was gonna make
Terry
everybody just
Gilliam,
be quiet. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No.
I don't want to talk to the bill collectors. They can wait until I have money and pay them. Um, but with
um,
Terry
the
Gilliam,
struggle is so real.
yeah, seriously. So Terry Gilliam's visual style is kind of, there are certain visual styles that I it's hard for me to describe, that it gives me a visceral negative reaction. And that's my problem with Terry Gilliam, is like his style, some for whatever reason there's something about it that just makes me feel icked out. And it's not a commentary on him at all, it's just
It's in
my
your
personal
face,
reaction.
right? It's the because he's using those tiny little lenses. He's literally sticking
Yeah,
in everything is in your face. Whereas because you've got the more mid-range lenses,
yeah,
uh, the 120s that Watitti uses, he gives you that reserve. There's at least there's
yeah,
enough of a distance between you and the satire for where
yeah,
it's not being thrown at you to kind of bounce off Yassi's point.
yeah. That's kind of, that's something that's interesting. Is like, satire should never make you comfortable. Obviously, you should be able to be like, oh yeah, that's what that means. But it also shouldn't give you motion sickness. And so yeah, I'd rather watch it from a little farther back. Um, but it's not even that. Sometimes there's grotesque imagery to it that I just can't. Like the reason I don't like the movie Labyrinth which a lot of people my age love. I don't like it because it just there's that same visceral reaction where it's like, no, that's wrong. There's something wrong with what I'm looking at, and I can't look at it for very long. So that's sort of that same feeling is what I get from Terry Gilliam, but I don't get that from Taika, because he's got a more, like, his images are beautiful, but they're also more conventional, so that they're not gonna get right up on something that's gonna make you throw up to look at it. Um, yeah.
Next in the PTR order is going to be High Bender, our resident New York Times USA Today best-selling author. And High, you always make a point of the difference between the two of us in this room is that I respond more visually to films and you respond more to the writing. And you and Erin should get along pretty well because, of course, Erin is very big on writing as well. But how familiar are you with Watitti's work, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I would hope that Erin and I would get along very well, and I'm really pleased and honored to be in a room with her. I'm mostly here to just kind of support. So the only thing I'm going to say is, Jennifer, the stage is wide open. I know you raised your hand earlier. Um, if you'd like to come up at any point, you'd be extremely welcome to. Erin had a presentation to give, but now we're in open Q&A. So I'd love to hear from you at any point if you want to. And if you don't, obviously, that's okay too. And that's my contribution for now.
Appreciate you being here, Hi, and
Yeah, thank you for
always appreciate your
supporting.
support. Hi follows me on all of my weirdo endeavors. It's great.
Nice.
Even when I was doing the history of the kings and the queens of England, Hi and Yassi were quite often the only audience that I had for that.
That's good to have supportive friends.
The Reverend Resin, how are you today, my friend?
Hey, beautiful people. I am all smiles.
Can you move a
All
little closer to
smiles
your
indeed.
microphone?
Oh, check. Yes, one moment. Okie dokie. Check. Mic check. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, that sounds better.
It does sound a little better, yes.
Oh, okay. Adjusted it to low audio quality. Yeah, all smiles. I have not seen Jojo Rabbit. I remember seeing the trailer. Oh man, what movie was I watching when that trailer was out? I was
I
watching
apologize
something
for the
real.
spoilers then.
Oh no, not at all. Because it was something that it didn't intrigue me at all. But
Mm-hmm.
I was intrigued by the reviews, and but now that it is so critically acclaimed, I definitely have to revisit it at some point. It was just never a priority because I'm like, it seems trite. It seems kind of,
That's the one
I'm
he
like,
won the Oscar for, isn't it, Aaron, for
Yeah,
best
yeah.
screenplay?
Best screenplay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I couldn't believe it. I think it was the same year, right? Mr. Captain Fantastic came out. What was the other movies that were out around this time?
That
Does
was your
anybody
Parasite
remember?
one, right?
Parasite, that was another one. That was a good one. I was in this an independent movie theater in Santa Rosa. I'll never forget when I saw the trailer for Jojo Rabbit, but oh, for the life of me, I can't. Oh, you know which movie I saw that I thought was relatively decent around that time was The Dead Won't Die. Is that what it's called with
Oh yeah, that's Jim Jarmusch movie.
that one came out good. I really, really enjoyed that movie. I thought that was something to mention.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah,
But
it had Bill Murray in it.
We were supposed to do that over at Understanding Movies before they went on their permanent hiatus that was supposed to be temporary. Not that I'm still bitter.
Who's counting? What do you think of Jojo Rabbit though as a whole? Like, is it a timeless cinematic masterpiece? I mean, it's a must see. Do I have to see this movie?
I think I think so. I think you should see it. It's really intelligent and well done. It shows people dealing with impossible circumstances and just doing the best they can with it and trying to fight from the inside. And it's through the eyes of a kid that, like, his father isn't around. They don't know if he deserted or was killed or what, but he was in the army and he's just gone. And so it's just him and his mother, and things are getting harder and harder and harder because, I mean, it's the end of the war and the Allies are advancing. Um, and he wants to fit in with somebody, and he's got like one friend who's um, just this goofy little kid, um, Yorkie, yeah, and he's a nice little kid, but he's mostly with his mother, and it's just him seeing his world just kind of falling down around him and how he deals with that. And then he finds out his mother is hiding a Jewish kid in their house, but he's been told to hate Jewish people, but he doesn't really have the capacity to hate. So trying to hate this person, it's like you see how it's not going to work. He's not going to be able to keep that hate up, but you can see where hate comes from. It's very very layered. There's a lot of things like there's the whole this is what the Nazis believe. So if you want to be in the Hitler Youth, you have to believe this. And he's trying his hardest to believe that to the point of having Hitler as his imaginary friend. But what he really wants is somebody to just accept him for who he is. He wants to have this family, this big family, and his family is disappearing. Um, it's it's really moving. It's funny as hell in a lot of places, um, but it's also really dark and it's really sad. But it ends on a hopeful note. So I highly recommend it. I think it's definitely one that should be seen.
There's something very important
Oh, well, thank you
about
for the synopsis.
Jojo Rabbit, which is there's the story of this kid who gets scars, like physical
Hmm.
scars, because of Nazi training in the camps.
Yeah,
And as you know, in Nazis never try to eliminate and kill all the Jews because they were saying that Jews, they don't look good, and we should look perfect. And
yeah,
what happens in this movie is that the way that Taika Waititi uses this imperfection that of a kid, and the trauma that he's enduring with loss of mother, with all this conflicts and everything. I think that is a very to to show, not you're not ugly, race is not ugly. If you have scars, uh, what Nazis were in Nazi propaganda, that one race is perfect and the other one is not perfect because they are ugly. It's very well done in this movie. You don't get to eradicate a race or anything because of the appearance. And also, the this and what they were doing, that genocide that they were doing, that ugliness of what they were doing on those camps. It's amazing the way that he does that in the movie. Also, there is a very touching scene with that Aaron touch. Spoiler alert: Germany didn't won the war. Yeah, for the movie. So
surprise.
for yeah, surprise. So, but the thing is that scene, that corpse, it's very touching. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, very in a very simplistic way, because he goes and he ties the shoelace of the
Yes.
mother, and the way that he uses this, because at the beginning of the movie, his mother is keep telling him that you shouldn't be ashamed of your scars. You should get out there. You should tie your shoelaces and grow up and embrace. what happened to you and get out there and find love and find life. And what
Yeah.
happens is that the moment that he finds uh, his mother, he, the way that he uses all these visual elements, that he ties the shoelace, that it's beginning of another, his growth, the growth of this little boy. It's so
And the
touching.
way it
And
pays
you were
off at
talking
the end
about
of the film with the shoes.
exactly with the shoes and the dance. The way that he uses dance in the movie,
Yeah.
that we dance, it's in our instinct, reminded me of the Breakfast Club a little bit, because of, this, the outcast and getting out, getting out of that's so beautifully done. And you were talking about Terry Gilliam. Why I mentioned that scene is angle the low angle camera that he looks at his mother, and then the close, that medium shot of him, uh, and then it's it's so well done. And the levity of the comedy, it all along the film, we can go on and on and on. And one other thing,
And a lesser
the found
director would have
family.
fetishized those shoes, and he
Exactly.
doesn't.
Yeah, the shoes are
He
just
does.
a metaphor. Tying the shoes is like when he ties her shoes, that's he has to grow up. He has to take care of himself now.
And
He
he had
doesn't
been
have a
using
choice.
kind of I know it was shot digitally, so he wasn't using grainy stock, but he was using a grainier film stock up until that scene, and then, or not film stock, I'm sorry, grainier technology, the video technology, so that you could actually kind of see the grain, so it felt documentary in the scenes going up to that. And but then for that scene, suddenly the world is bright and in like almost technicolor, you know.
Yeah, Aaron
Very
said that
poignant.
Even
the
though
way
it's one
that
of the
he
even though it's one of the saddest scenes in the film, it is visually very
Okay.
very bright, and the color of the shoes very gleams, and you actually see details in the street that you didn't see before, before he was lighting them a little more dimly, and it stands out, and for the rest of the film it's shot in that bright, because so while it is the saddest scene in the film, and the crux of the film, you also see it as kind of um, JoJo's uh, awakening, and that the war is coming to an end, and you are and things are getting brighter, but you're only seeing that visually, not in terms of the writing. And I think I think that's just absolutely masterful. If like a Paul Thomas Anderson had done something like that in a film, or a Quentin
oh
Tarantino, you know,
exactly.
you would have film nerds for days writing essays about what it means, but because comedy just doesn't get the respect I think that it deserves, you really don't you don't see Watitti mentioned in that category.
And that and there's just an ingrained racism. A lot of times they here's this brown man doing a comedy, and so they don't pay attention to the artistry of it. And that's why it's so easy for them to take his over the top personality and make it a negative thing when he's really just trying to amuse himself. It's there's a lot of racism in the world.
Yeah, and you know what? That scene, something else that happens again visually so beautifully in the film is that all along we he has Hitler as his as his imaginary friend, but on that specific scene, Hitler is not next to him. He's watching him from the distance to show that, this, to demonstrate that he learned something and he's growing up, and he doesn't need that, that figure as an imaginary friend, because, I think that was very well done again.
Also, in regards to the imaginary Hitler, as the thing goes along, Hitler gets more and more unpleasant. Like there's a scene when they don't have really any food, and he's imagining Hitler eating a unicorn. Um, and he just gets he's jealous of his friendship with this girl in his house. Um, at the last time you see him, it's after he's found out that Hitler killed himself, and the imaginary Hitler has a bullet hole in his head, and he's yelling and ranting like in the newsreel footage that we've all seen, and he's doing the gestures, and the accent is getting thicker, and so ultimately he kicks him out a window. You know, just as it goes along, as he sees, you know, more and more unpleasantness about his situation. Where did Eric go? Okay, but as he gets more and more unpleasant, he's back. Uh, as he's more and more disillusioned with, he's looking up to the Nazis, and now he's like, but maybe they're wrong. And the more he realizes they're wrong, the worse the Hitler character gets until he finally has to reject him entirely. And I think it's a really well done performance. I thought it
Exactly.
was.
And yeah, yeah, and going back again to what I was saying, that they were keep saying that, oh, and because we hear it a lot in the film, they keep repeating this, that, oh, the Jews love ugliness, the Jews have horns. Okay, and then, like, like devils, that's is one of the symbols that they're using in the throughout the film, that, oh, Jews like devils have horns. And, because they were all sending Jewish people to the camps, so there were no Jewish people around, so they can build up this kind of monstrous image of Jewish people, which I think it goes back to another theme that we talked about last week, that how important it is for people to see, to be seen, so that to wash off all the rumors and everything. But most importantly, when we see the unicorn, and that juxtaposition, that that contradiction, that not all horns are ugly. Sometimes unicorns have horns, and
Sure.
this fantastical, magical, wonderful figures have horns, and still Hitler eats unicorn. It eats any sort of innocence, beauty, and any sort of beauty inside this kid's head, or in reality of the world. The destroyer of beauty, because not scars can be beautiful and horns can be beautiful, and yeah.
I
Yeah,
never
and
noticed that before. That's a very good. You made me see something in that film I hadn't seen before, Yassi. Thank you.
um, yeah, I hadn't picked up on that either. So that's really interesting. But also that he has a crush on Elsa. That they're hiding her in her house, and she's Jewish, but she's not ugly. And it's like he doesn't understand what to make of that because of everything he's been told. And so then he gets a crush on her, and he's he's starting to realize at that point everything that he's been told is a lie, and that's very important to him for him
And,
to
and
learn.
and an important scene to follow that up is that when you find out how slow he is to learn that among other German kids his age, when he's talking to his, I can't remember the name of his friend, when they're fighting the Russian invasion, and he's talking about how he's got a Jew living in his basement, and he's practically her boyfriend, and all he says is, "Oh, you have a girlfriend," because of course the fact that she's Jewish doesn't
Yeah,
even mean anything to him.
yeah, because he's a little
Yeah,
kid. He doesn't kids aren't born racists. That's something you have to learn, and that's something that he'd been taught for so long, but clearly his mother didn't believe that, but she couldn't be overt with it because that would have put him in danger. So it was a complicated and impossible way to live.
Now, I wanted to move the conversation because you've shown admirable restraint today, Erin. In the 3 years that I've known you, I know this about you, that you've been wanting to mention a Watitti project that he's done through his production company, and directed 3 episodes of, called Our Flag Means Death. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
um, I kind of want to move on to a conversation about that because I'm one of those people who, number one, loved the show, but number two, really wants to see a third season
Oh
where
my
where,
God,
where
right?
Steed and Blackbeard are running it in. Um, and and so we're getting kind of towards the end of our time here, and I kind of want to finish off on a hopeful note that maybe that will be Watitti's next project if we can pressure someone to pick it up. It probably won't be HBO, it probably won't be Max, but there are so many streaming services. What do we want? A gay pirate show. When do we want it? Like a season from now, so that they've got time to make it. Yes,
Yeah,
and I think this is a cause we should all rally upon. But I'm going to
absolutely.
give you. We're gonna have our final segment. Give me your top reasons why there should be a third season of Our Flag Means Death.
Um, the number one reason is the most selfish reason. I want to see it. But there's a lot more to it than that. It's a lot more complex than, oh, I just want to see it. Um, it represents so much to a marginalized community. Um, it's a very queer show. It's not just one variety of being queer. It's like, yes, you have two gay men as the leads. The actors aren't, but they're able to play these characters so beautifully. I just absolutely love that. Um, there's nobody on that ship is straight. Just nobody. Even if it's like they're ace or Kitty, go away, buddy. Sorry, my cat's trying.
Gray sexual, I believe, is the politically correct phrase now for those characters.
No, not necessarily. Um, Gray sexual is a type of being asexual. I'm mostly gray sexual because it's hard to describe. Okay, asexual is not feeling sexual attraction. Allosexual is feeling sexual attraction, like what you expect the majority of the population to feel. And then between those two, it's a spectrum. So you've got demisexual, which is you only feel sexual attraction when you have an emotional connection. Gray sexual is between that and fully asexual, which is you feel it sometimes, but not always. It's like it's very specific cases, or it's a very weak attraction. Um, and there's fully ace where you don't feel it at all. So gray sexual is a term. It's just a specific kind of asexual. So there's your ace knowledge for the day.
You'll have to back channel me those notes because I
Okay.
wasn't able to write them down fast enough. You know
Oh,
what? I'll
sorry.
get them off the replay.
Okay. Um, yeah, there are as many ways of being queer as there are queer people, just like there are as many ways of being autistic as there are autistic people. There's no one way to do it, but this has like uh, a lot of representation that we just don't get. Um, and there's no queer baiting at all, which is amazing. Queer baiting is when there are characters that you could ship them together, you could see them in a relationship, but they'll tease it, but they'll never actually show it. So like Supernatural was really bad for that with Dean and Castiel, I believe. I never really watched the show, but a lot of my friends did, and my son watched it, and um, they call that ship Destiel because shipping is when you imagine two characters or more in a relationship, and they all have these ship names. So like Blackbeard and Steed are Gentlebeard, um, and then Steed and Izzy is Stizzy, stuff like that. Uh, but with Destiel, it was a lot of queer baiting because they didn't want to actually commit to them being attracted to each other until like I believe they killed off Castiel, and the last thing he said was that he loved Dean. So it's like that sucks. That's not cool. That's bury your gays. That's a trope where if someone's gay, you have to kill them off. Um, they don't do that at all in Our Flag Means Death. Um, Everybody is allowed to to be represented as a real person. I was actually just watching. I've been watching reaction videos to it just to get different perspectives. But yeah, I mean, the first season took apart masculinity. Like, you don't have to be basically there's more than one way to be a man. There's more than one way to be masculine, and that's something that you just don't see every day. The concept of toxic masculinity isn't that masculinity itself is toxic. It's that there are ideas about masculinity that are toxic and are imposed on people in a way that causes harm, right? Um, and they show that in season one with the Badminton brothers. Um, they the way they and Steve's father, the way they and Izzy, honestly, the way that they treat the two male leads, it's like there's a very narrow window of how to be a man, and they don't fit that. And they can either be performative about it, like Blackbeard, or they can reject it entirely, like Steed, where he ran away to sea and abandoned his family so that he could just. In my mind, it was for him, it was that or die.
To make it clear that Watitti plays Blackbeard and Darby plays Steve.
Yeah, to it just to get different perspectives. But yeah, I mean, the first season took apart masculinity. Like, you don't have to be. Basically there's more than one way to be a man. There's more than one way to be masculine, and that's something that you just don't see every day. The concept of toxic masculinity isn't that masculinity itself is toxic. It's that there are ideas about masculinity that are toxic and are imposed on people in a way that causes harm, right? Um, and they show that in season one with the Badminton brothers. Um, they the way they and Steve's father, the way they and Izzy, honestly, the way that they treat the two male leads, it's like there's a very narrow window of how to be a man, and they don't fit that. And they can either be performative about it, like Blackbeard, or they can reject it entirely, like Steed, where he ran away to sea and abandoned his family so that he could just. In my mind, it was for him, it was that or die.
To make it clear that Watitti plays Blackbeard and Darby plays Steve.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain just locked up again. Um, this is a tangent. It's actually Taika's production company is a big part of it, but it's actually the showrunner is David Jenkins. Um, and this goes back to how do we get this picked up by other networks? He's been trying, and it was canceled out of the blue in January when people were actually preparing to go back to New Zealand to film season 3. So nobody expected it to be canceled, but David Zaslav was like, oh no, it costs more money than a reality show, so let's get rid of it. Also, there's queer people, we can't have that. Um, yeah, there's been a lot of talk on Twitter about this show. Um, they, they haven't released really any details about it, but what it sounds like is happening is HBO Max is refusing to um, sell the rights for a reasonable price. So they may say, oh, yeah, another streamer could pick it up. They're not willing to sell it at a price that other streamers are willing to pay, even though it's a hit show and people love it to the point that, I mean, we crowdfunded an airplane banner saying, you know, bring back our flag means death, and a truck saying with billboards on the sign saying, bring back our flag means death. Um, we've managed to tank Warner Brother Discovery's stock. It as of I think Friday, it was below $7 a share. And I say we because I'm part of this community. I'm not as active as other members, but I still contribute what I can, which is basically just resharing stuff and talking about it as much as possible. Um, because this show is groundbreaking. You don't see representation like this every day. This is very much not just showing these characters, but making them lovable. Nobody in the show is irredeemable unless they choose to be. So, like, again, the Badminton brothers, they were not redeemable, but they represented privilege. They were rich, they were white, they were British, they were part of the military, so they're part of the system. And they want to kill off the pirates. And they want everybody to fit their mold of what a man should be like. And if you don't, then you're not even a person, you know? And those are the only people that are irredeemable. All the times they could have had a villain, they didn't turn out that wasn't, basically heteronormativity and, white supremacy. Those characters didn't turn out to be actual villains. Like in season one, Steed leaves his family, and they kind of at the beginning show his wife Mary is not a very nice person. But as the series goes along, you start to understand her more. The few times you see her, she makes more sense until at the end of it, you realize she was every bit as miserable as Steed was in that marriage, but she felt obligated to make it work because that was their life. Um, and she ends up being a very sympathetic character that you really, really like by the end of it. All of season one, Izzy Hams is Blackbeard's first mate, and he's very antagonistic towards Steed and the crew, and he doesn't like the way they do things. He thinks they're all idiots. He doesn't like how open they are with who they are. Um, and he causes, by the end of season one, he causes a breakdown in Ed where he becomes not just Blackbeard, but the Kraken, an extreme version of Blackbeard. Um, and by season two, you see how that didn't go as planned. He got exactly what he wanted, and it was not what he realized he actually wanted. And they end up by the end of that season making Izzy a sympathetic character because no one is irredeemable, unless you are actively trying to hurt people. And I don't mean like as pirates, I mean as humans, trying to dehumanize people. Um, Honestly, to paraphrase Terry Pratchett's, sin is when you start treating people like things. Um, that's when people are really bad. And that's what the English military is doing. That's what the Badmintons are doing. That's what Prince Ricky is doing. Because they introduced Prince Ricky as a character at the beginning of season two, and you think he's going to be another person like Steed. He's more like what Steed would be like if he had gone bad, instead of becoming a better person. So he's the main villain for season two. Um, I think that season three, if we had a season three, Prince Ricky could possibly be given a redemption arc, but then again, possibly not. But you can see in season two that he's not really treated very well either because he doesn't fit that mold. So you can see if there were a season three, you can see him having a redemption arc like Izzy had in season two. It's yeah. There's a lot of
And hopefully won't have to lose his leg to do it.
well, he already lost his nose, so um, I don't know if he would
It's
lose
not
any
lost.
other body parts.
It's in Jackie's jar. Oh wait, no, that's right. They dropped
Apparently,
the he dropped the jar. That's right. I forgot about that.
uh, he broke the jar in season one. It was a new jar in season two. There's a cut scene where he made Jackie eat his nose, so his nose isn't coming back. Um,
Oh, I have to look. I
um,
have to look that up. Is that on YouTube?
Look on Samba Shoot's Instagram, and
Okay.
he plays Roach. Look on his Instagram and on Twitter, and there's scenes that they filmed that didn't get released. They're not necessarily always very well put together. There's a couple scenes that are really great, but you can barely hear them because it's the audio from his phone and not from the boom mic. But yeah, there was so much they had to cut from season two because they cut the number of episodes from 10 to 8, and then they cut the budget by 40% because they didn't want to have to do a season two, and they still made
Yeah,
it
and
work.
that's why it feels a bit rushed, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Towards
that's
the end.
exactly it. If they'd had two more episodes, it would have flowed a lot better. It does flow better if you watch the whole thing from season one, episode one through the end of season two. The flow fits a lot better, but it's still. I wish there'd been those two more episodes.
Well, you're gonna hate me, Aaron, but we're going to move on to.
Oh no!
Well, before you move on, I just want to
Oh,
point
he's
out
gone.
that if you want to see a gay pirate show, watch Dark Sails. Excuse me,
Yeah, Black Sails.
Black
Yeah, I've
Sails.
heard a lot about
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Oh, it's
it's
wonderful. It's a great series.
I've heard that. I've heard it's really great, and I know that it's got Ray Stevenson, one of my favorite actors, who's unfortunately dead now. That's really sad. He played Blackbeard in Black Sails. He also played Pulo in Rome, which was one of my favorite shows. It was one of my previous obsessions. Another HBO show, but yeah. Anyway,
I
so
swiped right. So sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yassi will kill me if I don't give her a chance to talk about Reservation Dogs on
Yes.
Hulu.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
that is a great show.
very important because I think that that is his, like Sterling Harjo's and Taika Waititi's brainchild. That's what it shows. It's like the you know uh, it summons everything about, I think about Taika Waititi. It represents LGBTQ. It represents indigenous culture in a very authentic way. He wrote and directed three first episodes, but then he left the show to the completely. This is like the first time that a show is done by like all cast and crew by indigenous people, and how he brought his humor and heart and his signature trademark of presenting indigenous people and LGBTQ to this show. I think it's remarkable. It has visual quality, it has narrative quality. Everything uh, about this show is, I think, it's very underrated for what it is at this moment. The way that shows goes deep into every single character arc of people in this show. And it's a sort of coming of age story at the same time. And, you know, kind of gives respect and homage to the Native American culture. It's so beautiful. It has all those, satiric elements, all those irony and parody and absurdity of Taika Waititi's work, and everyone comes to help. It has Ethan Hawke in it. It has Bill Burr in it. So many, not just cameos for the sake of it, but the cameos that have kind of, it's not just for marketing publicity, but they kind of have the inside joke and, and all, you know, I think I don't want to. I'm not sure if I can say, but they kind of break this fourth wall of awareness. This self-referential element when he adds these cameos to the show, and he does that also in one other thing that I have to mention before we go, and it's when during COVID he had this project that with Roald Dahl's Institute, that he brought every, like, seriously, every celebrity that from uh, Benedict Cumberbatch, Meryl Streep, Chris Hemsworth, Liam Hemsworth, Nick Kroll, Yo-Yo Ma, Cynthia Erivo, Billy Porter, I don't know, Mindy Cummings, what can I say? Olivia Wilde, Kate Blanchett, Sarah Paulson. He brought everybody to read the James and the Giant Peach. There were just series on YouTube, and the way that yeah, back then everybody would sat at Zoom and talk to the camera and try to do what he did. Is he brought this kind of the warmth of a radio show with adding all these people with their familiar voices, with this familiar story, and he this the innovation of this celebrity collaboration was so beautiful because he did the visual, the sound effects. He creates them with simple things around them, like with paper, with water. It's to show that you don't need uh, you know a lot of VFX or a lot of technicals, the computer techniques to create something warm to connect with people, especially during COVID. The dynamic reading between these celebrities, it had a very simple warmth, effect that I can't forget. I really recommend everyone go read and watch those videos because they're amazing.
I'm definitely going to have to look those up. But yeah, he knows how to tell a story. He knows that the story is the most important thing, and to be able to do that, to bring it together as simply but effectively as that's just part of his genius. Also, I
Well,
need to.
go ahead.
I was just going to say I need to keep watching Reservation Dogs because I've been watching it with my son, and we kind of stopped at the end of season 2, and I don't think we've seen season 3 yet, and I feel bad about it because I love that show so much.
Oh,
And
there is no season
Yeah,
3.
you're at the
It's just 2
yeah.
of
There's only
seasons.
Reservation
2
Dogs.
seasons so far. It has been
Oh,
renewed,
I
but
thought there was a third one.
they haven't filmed it yet.
Oh,
So you're
well
caught
then,
up.
I only
So
have one episode to
so
watch.
you can
Okay,
stop walking around feeling bad, Aaron.
good, because it's a brilliant
I did
show.
want to make a point on Yassi's thing about the cameos. This is something that Watitti does very well. You think of Matt Damon and Sam Neill in Ragnarok. You think of Bronson Pinchot shows up in the second season of Our Flag Means Death.
Yes.
Absolutely, I had no idea till the ending credits that was him.
Yeah,
You know,
that was, and he was so good at that. Ned Lowe was such a great character. That's my favorite episode, I think, of the series.
yeah.
Not just because of Ned Lowe, but because of Izzy getting to sing. Because Con O'Neill has
Oh,
an
so
incredible
many
voice, you know?
undercut expectations in that because Izzy
Yeah,
turns out to be a good singer,
yeah,
and then it's built up the whole. Oh my God, what will killing someone change Steed? And of course, no, it doesn't. And it's perfect because you're set up for this emotional response, and it turns out to be quite the opposite. It's probably my favorite episode of both seasons too.
yeah. I think it did change Steed a little bit, but I think mostly things were
For the better, though,
moving really
but
quickly.
not for the worse. For the better.
It made him more of a pirate. Um, that's something I'm gonna have to think about. He's I don't think that the end of season 2 is the end of the story, and I would love to see where the story goes from there because they ended it that way because of the possibility of being canceled. But there's no way they're going to succeed as innkeepers. Neither one of them has the personality for that, and the English aren't done looking for them. So this is where fan fiction comes in. So a lot of us fans have been writing our own version of season 3, and
And
we'll
I've also heard talk of a Pirate Jackie spinoff. Which I think that would be great. Just having
yes.
a story about that pirate cove. I mean, I would watch that.
Oh
But
yeah, I'd totally watch that.
But
But
which brings me to a point. I had been kind of talking to you this in back channels, but I thought before everyone abandons Clubhouse and goes to Chatter, I don't really actually think that's going to happen. I'm being sarcastic. Um,
I think it's going to happen.
but but if it does, we can do well. The idea still works. We'll just do it over on Chatter, which I'm still on the welcome screen. They haven't invited me in yet because
I got in. I'm doing a show on Chatter today at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm not publicizing it widely
wish I
because
could be there.
most people.
Hi, but I'm just not good enough. I'm not a big
it,
enough
it
super user. Um,
it'll open up soon.
3 years and 1,300 friends on this app wasn't enough for me to. But anyway, not that I'm still bitter. But I was talking to Erin about this idea of something that we were mentioned that Erin had brought to mind, and we talked about when we were a bit when we were talking about the film of Taste of Honey, and this idea of a kind of found family community, not only in the show of Flag Means Death, but that has kind of come around the show of Flag Means Death. That a bunch of people who kind of consider themselves or are considered outsiders have kind of banded together in pursuit of a third season. And I thought, Erin, you should start a clubhouse, or if worse comes to worse and we have to move a chatter house to this purpose, because I think one of those two places would be a great place to get these people together in a common space.
That's true. I could probably talk some people into joining. That would be fun because I mean, we all have a lot to say about the show, and we really want to see another season. That would be interesting. We'll have to see how that goes.
You know, this idea of found family goes in parallel with what I was saying about what Taika Waititi does with subverting the norms and deconstruction, you know, the deconstruction in his style of comedy in Jojo Rabbit. The way that
Yeah.
Jojo, you know, he looks for a, you know, instead of a biological family, he looks for this chosen family, and he replaced uh, his sister with Elsa, and you know that, you know, and he, you know, at the end he even this acceptance of a Jewish girl hiding in his home as his love or sister, or you know, everything that's another, you know, the found family that you were talking about is another theme in Jojo Rabbit, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. That's yeah. Because the family he was looking for before was the wrong family, um, and he slowly realizes that, and then he finds the people that really matter to him, that he fits in with better, that accept him and love him. But he has to learn to accept and love them first. So it's building that family is difficult, but he eventually gets there. Yeah, the
Yeah,
concept of
the
found
wrong
family.
family. They were like
Yeah,
Hitler, that is keep giving him cigarettes, or everybody's trying to give him cigarettes. I really
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Well, it's funny because Captain K becomes sort of found family as well because he likes and respects Rosie, his mother, and wants to take care of Jojo because he's come to the realization that what he thought was his found family was the wrong group. But he's already in the German military. He's already a Nazi, and he can't get out of that. But he can help the people that aren't in it yet. And God, that by the end of the movie, um, he ultimately sacrifices himself to save Jojo because that's his family. And he couldn't save Rosie, but he could save Jojo. It was really beautifully done. Um,
And speaking of found family, I would like to welcome Erin Brown officially to the UK cinema history
oh, thank you.
family.
Thank you.
Now, Erin works when we do our shows on Thursdays, so she said hopefully she can be there for our July 4th episode on Kind Hearts and Coronets. But who knows what the future brings with chatter and everything else? We may change times. I'm tired of changing times so that people can be a part of the show, because then we've changed the time and we lose the people who could come then, and the people that we changed it for stop showing up. So unfortunately, but eventually we're going to be able to integrate you into it somehow. And if not,
Yeah,
we'll
thank
have
you.
these special weekend rooms
Awesome.
that for this series. So I welcome
Awesome to
aboard,
have
baby.
Erin for Kind
Thank
Hearts and
you.
Coronets. That would be fantastic. Um,
Yes,
before we close, I want to say, Erin, it would be wonderful if you could talk about what you've done and what you're doing, so people can have a sense of uh, what stuff to look for that you've already done, and what stuff to look for if it's coming in the future.
Okay. I have a YouTube channel. It's at Pizza Horse Productions. I haven't done a lot, honestly. I came to filmmaking kind of relatively late. Actually, it's been 10 years now, but I was 37 when I started making movies. So, actually, no, I think I was a little older. I've made two short films and a few films during COVID that I did remotely with my friends. A lot of my channel is just like editing exercises. Um, I've been working on some scripts. I don't have anything in process right now, so that kind of probably makes me sound like a fake, but still, I have made a few films. My first film was The Voice in the Dark, and I actually won Audience Choice for that twice, which is a pretty big deal. They're relatively small festivals, but I was proud of it for my first film. Um, I also got Best Actor and Best Actress for um, Hotline, which was not written by me. That was written by Jamie Campbell, who is the male lead of that. So that was. It's nice when my films win awards. um, I am still working on some scripts. I've got a vampire script, a horror comedy called Gary Has a Girlfriend, about a vampire that falls in love with just a regular person. Um, and then I've got another one that I haven't gotten a title for about cryptid hunters. That should be pretty funny. It's going to be another comedy. Um, I should probably put a link to my YouTube page up there too. I just need to find that.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there's nothing inauthentic about you. You've been, uh, incredibly giving and generous and knowledgeable about film, and we really, really appreciate everything that you've shared today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun. There, I've updated my link so that my YouTube channel is there. If anybody wants to watch that.
So at the beginning of the room, we were saying that what the Taika Waititi is currently doing. So he's currently shooting Clara and the Sun, which is the adaptation of Kazuo Ishiguro sci-fi novel that I really love and I really recommend to everyone to read. It's a dystopian sci-fi, and with Jenna Ortega and Amy Adams. And because we talked about his cameos and his contribution to everything, he has, supposedly is going to make a Star Wars movie. And I think we have to mention his amazing character, IG-11, in the first season of Mandalorian.
Yes.
And yes, because he brings this sarcasm and kind of, the emotional depth to this droid. I think it's all because of Taika Waititi's kind of nuanced vocal
Oh yeah,
performance.
he's got an amazing voice. He's actually done some meditations for kids that you can find on YouTube, like for going to sleep and stuff. And they're very silly but very soothing. But yeah, IG-11. I never thought I would be sad to see a droid go, but he
Right?
brought
Exactly.
depth to that character, because he's
Very
in Force
silly,
World
but
was very
very
cute.
soothing, as Taika Waititi summed up in a nice nutshell.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, he humanized that droid because
He
of his
did.
charm. Yeah, his humor has a charm to it. What people calls goofy, I think it's the best way to describe it is his charm. That's what he does.
Yeah, he's very
Amusing and
charming.
charm.
He's
And he comes as close as anybody to stealing that first series from Baby Yoda.
That's true. Yeah, he is very charming. He's very clever and charismatic and just so fun to watch, you know?
Yeah, he gets Din Djarin to like and trust the droid, so there
Right?
must be something too.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great
You
in that.
got your Star Wars in though,
Yeah,
Yassi. I
yes.
congratulate you.
You're
Yes.
welcome.
You are a clever woman. I tell you. I knew you'd find a way. I knew you'd do it.
Yeah,
Well, on
whenever
that note,
his
I'm going to wrap up. Anybody else have any more questions for Erin Resin? Oh, Jennifer wants to know if you have an Instagram. I know you're on Facebook, so you're on the Meta. Yeah, are you on Instagram?
yeah, I am. I don't really post there a lot. What is my Instagram?
But she is on Facebook where she posts quite a bit, mostly on our flag means death, as one of her
Mostly, yeah.
Facebook. I'm joking, Erin. You know, I adore. No, she used to post back in the good old days. Every Wednesday, the it is Wednesday, my dude frogs,
Yeah.
and it was the highlight of my week because Erin would remind her that, first of all, feeling that I was one of your dudes, but second of all, that you took the time to remind me that it was Wednesday. It was always the highlight of my week.
I'll have to go back to doing that because I do have friends that really enjoy that. I just have forgotten to for a
I'm one
while.
of them.
Then I'm gonna have to do it. It's funny because I have certain things that I do that I have friends that absolutely love it. Like on Groundhog Day every year, I repeat the same status every hour or two, and I've got friends that look forward to that. And then on St. Patrick's Day, because my name is Erin and you're supposed to say Erin go bra, I'll just post bra. And my one friend Brandy just looks forward to that every year, which is silly. Okay, so my Instagram is
Well, that's
at
also my
toadpuppy.
birthday.
So
My birthday is St. Patrick's Day, so
oh,
yeah,
hey, that's awesome.
and so every year I have two things to look forward to. Yes, I always enjoy that as well.
So my Instagram is at toadpuppy, and you pretty much anything that's toadpuppy is gonna be. Very few people use that. So I'm on Twitter is at toadpuppy. Let's see, Reddit. Uh, what else? Society Six, if you want to look at that page. I've got Redbubble, but I think that's is that Erin. But yeah, look for Toad Puppy or that Erin, and you'll probably find me.
Ooh, I'll have to follow you on the artist formerly known as Twitter, now known as X.
Yeah.
You know, you can put those links into your Clubhouse profile as well, so people can hyperlink to you.
Okay, awesome. When we're done, I'll go back and do that.
Well, any other questions? And Erin, any last words on Taika Watitti before we close this room and I go back and kind of try and edit it into a podcast?
Um, I think he's brilliant. I think he's hilarious. He's director goals for me. Um, I wish I had the talent that he has. Um, I just love his work. So that's and you should too. I hope I've convinced everyone.
Yassi, any final thoughts?
I just love that this man is using his, his platform to, he advocates for LGBTQ. His public statements about them, the way that he uses this his comedy and what I said, this reverse of the norms in Thor. He brought the you know the way that, and he does it very in a very subtle way. He brought a female Thor, he brought Valkyr, the bisexuality in the comics. He kind of shine a lights on them, this acceptance and the diversity, the promoting diversity through a through comedy and normalizing them and in a very human way. And he make you know the visibility, just like in Jojo Rabbit. He When Jojo talks to his friend and says, I saw a Jew, and they are not the way that these people are describing them. That's what he's doing to LGBTQ community. He's trying to add the characters, the authentic characters into these movies, and that's why they are very, divided fan base. And there's so many. We talked about it last week, that what happens when you do something like this in Disney or in Marvel or in Star Wars. This fear of bringing these people to give them put them in the spotlight, bring them to light, take them out of the shadows and put them into lights. That's what scares people. And that's what Taika Waititi does with no fear. You know, he has this type of character that he he just he does this, and he doesn't care if the public likes it or no, if he gets the Oscar or no. But he does what he thinks is right for the pop culture, and I think that's what is so important. And I really appreciate whatever he's doing on that regard.
I agree 100%. He yeah, he does what matters. He makes sure that there's an authenticity to what he does. He's not just pandering to what people want to see. He's going to tell the stories that he's going to tell no matter what, and that's what an artist does. You put yourself out there and say, "Here it is," and people will like it or they won't. But don't let them say, "Oh, you're so woke," because that doesn't even. What does that even mean? Oh, hey, you're so open to other people and other ideas. We need that. We need the other people and ideas, people that aren't us, people that are we're not part of that culture or that community. We need to see that because that makes us see how alike we are. Um, like there's so many we as humans have more similarities than differences, but we focus on the differences so often. And to get all those voices out there so that we can see the similarities, that's what we have to do. That's the most important thing.
Thanks, Erin. Yassi, do you want to give out your Twitter address if anybody wants to follow you online? I'm trying to get everybody's pluggables in.
Yeah, you can follow. I have it in my profile. My Twitter is there at Soufi Yassi. Yep, that's it.
Thank you. Hi, Bender. First of all, I want to thank you for suggesting Don't Look Now. We jiggered our schedule for July so that we can have a remembrance of the Donald Sutherland who just passed, and that was at High's suggestion. And any final thoughts? And also get out your pluggables if somebody wants you to help work on a script or a book idea, where they could contact you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Yeah, I'm a ghostwriter as well as being an author under my own name. So if you want to do a book or if you want to do a movie or develop a TV series, please feel very encouraged to reach out. My website is bookproposal.net. Well, it's my book site. My script site is highyourscript.com. And my email address is hy at highreviews.com. Would love to hear from you. And again, I'm so grateful, Erin, for your coming on today and for doing such a wonderful deep dive on someone who deserves all of the accolades that you've given him, and for expanding our understanding of this wonderful filmmaker. And really appreciate your passion, your wit, your appreciation of comedy and of diversity. And I couldn't agree with you more. Um, if we focus on differences, we end up with very little. We focus on connections, then we really have something, something to live for and to build on. So I think that's really a profound observation that you made, and I appreciate
Thank you so
you
much.
making it.
Thank
Um,
you.
oh, sure, you're very welcome. Again, a real pleasure to meet you. And if you can ever spare the time to come back, it would be absolutely wonderful to have you for Kind Hearts and Coronets. That would be a wonderful pairing of your sensibility with that comedy. And again, as always, Eric, thank you so much for putting this together. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it.
And we appreciate you being here. Hi. Reverend Resman, number one, is your microphone working? And number two, final thoughts. And I don't know if you want to let people know about your Wake and Bake podcast over there on the Instagram or not, but this would be the time to plug it. His microphone is not working, but if you search "Wake and Bake" all one word over on the Instagram, you'll find he has a weekly podcast there. So I want to thank Erin. Definitely great. We really appreciate you coming and filling us in on Watitti. Yeah, our normal co-hosts Yassi and Hi, Reverend Resin, and people in the audience, Jennifer, Luca, Scub, Siphon, and we appreciate all of you being here. Thursday we will be doing A Night to Remember, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In this room, in the UK Cinema History Room, and then we're going to be doing more of the Why I Love series on weekends. I think I'm going to move it to Saturdays instead of Sundays, but I do want to make it so that people are available. But I'm going to edit this one first before we schedule the next one. I'd like to get the people who normally do our panel for UK cinema history to do episodes before I hate to say it, before I move on to strangers, so that we can kind of get all the kinks out, so to speak, and have a few episodes under our belt before I start hitting up people that I don't know. But there will be future episodes. I'm going to try and do 2 a month going forward. So other than that, I thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday. Yazzie and Hi, I know that you'll be there. Erin, I know you'll be working, but you'll be there in spirit. And have a great night. And in the immortal words of Taika Watitti, hey, if you're young enough to do it, do it. If you're too old to do it, don't. I think that's the wisest advice there is. And on that note, have a great one. Thank you again for listening to UK Cinema History. If you want to join the conversation, follow the link in the episode description. Every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we record these episodes live on the Clubhouse app. Hope to see you there. And while you're listening, please rate us and review us on your favorite podcaster. It'd be doing us a great favor. And thanks again.